In topic 6, we're going over percent and mixture problems. So these are the learning objectives, and we'll start right in. Now, I think a key thing to remember when we're doing these word problems is we want to get an equation. Now, some of these you can do by arithmetic, but this is algebra, so we want to use an equation. And we're looking for key terms. Now remember, if you want background on this, our video on the textbook would be very useful. And we also have additional exercises that we do, along with the PowerPoint that we did of these as well. So find each number described, 5%. So the first thing we have to do is convert 5% to its decimal form. And hopefully you know how to do that. Of, we want to remember, is translated to multiplication, and then of 300, so it's this times 300, is, we know, translates to a equal sign or an equal sign, and then what number is our letter N. So we've set up an equation for letter A. All right, let's do B. 207 is 90%, converting that to a decimal, of what number is multiplication. Now we didn't have to put the parentheses there, but we're just doing it anyway. Okay, letter C, 15, that's pretty straightforward. 15 is 1% of what number? And notice we're setting up equations that we'll solve here shortly. Now, what percent, we can use P if we want, for what percent of 350 is 420? Okay. So we're really directly translating what we have here into algebraic equations. So how do we solve this? Well, here we're just going to multiply 0.05 times 300. And I have my calculator, and hopefully you have yours. 0.05 times 300. And that gives me 15. And what do we do here to solve it? Well, we want to isolate the n, so we're going to divide both sides by 0.90. These cancel out, and we're left with n now. And I go to my calculator, 207 divided by 0.9. I don't have to put the 0 in there. And I get 230. Later I'll check the answers, but I'm pretty sure they're right. Now here, how do we solve this one? Well, again, we're looking for the n, so we're going to divide both sides by 0.01. 0.01. So 15 divided by 0.01 is 1,500. And here now we're going to divide both sides by 350. And we're going to get P equals, so 420 divided by 350. Now we get 1.2. But they're looking for a percentage here. So this is its decimal form. We want to convert that to a percentage by moving the decimal 2 places to the right and adding a percent sign. So this will be 120%. And let's check our answers and see how we did. And they all checked out. Okay, let's go on to number 2 now. Solve the following discount or markup problems. If needed, round answers to the nearest cent. Okay. Now, there is a recipe in doing discount and markups, but let's just look at what they say here, and perhaps we can give it as we go along. So, a going out of business sale advertises a 75% discount. Wow. So you're only paying 25% of the actual original price. Find the amount of the sales price of an item originally priced at this. Okay. Well, in something like this, sometimes, you don't really need an equation. So if you are going to get this much off, okay, let me write that out for you. Now, basically, you're going to take 75% of this, subtract it from that, and that'll be your sales price. So 75% of that, 0.75 times 130 is, this is going to be 97.5. So we're going to subtract that from 130, and we get the sales price then is $32.50. Again, there are different ways to do that. I did put this one in an equation, and that one's okay. All right, let's go on. Recently, an anniversary dinner cost this, including tax. Find the total cost if a $15 tip is to be added. Okay, so a formula for that is, this is what the cost, including tax, of the meal was. And then you're going to add to that what percent for tip. Well, 15% tip of that same amount. And that will be then the total cost. We'll use the letter T. So we're going to do 0.15 times 145.23, which is 2178, that we're now going to add to this, plus 145.23, and and I get then the total cost with the tip now is 167.01. That's rounding it off. Let's see what they have here. I checked both answers, and both answers are there, so that's good. All right, let's move it up a little bit. I will read over number 3. Now in number 3, they're looking for percent of increase and percent of decrease. Now if you start with something and then later there's more, that's an increase. If you start with something and later it's less, that's a decrease. So the recipe for figuring out both of these kinds of problems are the same, except in some cases it'll be an increase and some it'll be a decrease, depending upon what you're dealing with. So here, the number of minutes on a cell phone bill went from this much originally to this much the next month. Find the percent of increase, because the numbers went up. Well, the rule is find out how much increase you had. Well, if you take 1200 from 1600, there's a 400-minute increase. You got that by subtracting these numbers, and you note it's an increase. Now, the key to all of these is you then put this amount of increase over the original amount, which was 1200. Now, this is nice because I can just cancel that out and I get 4 twelfths. Well, what is 4 twelfths as a percent? Well, we can reduce it to 1/3, actually, is what I was looking for there. 4 goes into there once, 4 goes into there 3 times, so 1/3. So what is 1/3 in a percent? Well, it's 33 1/3%, because that's a repeating decimal. So for number 4, they rounded off and they didn't count the 1/3 here, so we'll just say 33%. All right, now in a college this year, it had this many students, and then in the next year, it had a decrease in students. What is the percent of decrease? Round, oh, here they're saying round to the nearest whole percent, okay. Round to the nearest whole percent there as well. So the first thing we have to do is find our decrease. So it's going to be, in my calculator, 8900 minus 7600 gives me 1300. Now that's the amount of decrease. Now remember, you always put the amount of the difference, whether it's increase or decrease, over the original amount, which is 8900. So we can cancel those out. We're going to divide 13 13 divided by 89. So 13 divided by 89 gives me 0.1460, and I need to round to the nearest whole percent. So I need 2 places in my answers, so this is going to add 1 here. So this becomes 15% was the amount of decrease, and that's what they have. I guess it's right there. Perfect. Now in letter C, again, we're getting a nice variety of kinds of things you're going to get. It says find the original price of a pair of boots if the sales price is this after a 20% discount. So we're going to call the original price N. We could use X, but we're definitely not going to use O because that looks like a 0. This was the original price of the book, of the boots, I should say. Now, the sales price was $120. That's what you paid afterwards. But you had here a 20% discount. Okay. So in a sense, this sales price represent what percent of the original price? If you got a 20% discount, then this represents what percent of the original price? Would you go along with 80%? So 80% of the original price is this, and there's your equation. Now, a lot of students, what they would do is they would divide, or they take 20% of that, and that wouldn't give them the right answer. Gives them a close answer, but it's not right. So think of it this way, that if you're getting a 20% discount, this price represents 80% of the original price. So how do you find the answer? You divide both sides by 80. 0.8, I should say, and then that's what I'm going to do with my calculator. So 120 divided by 0.8, and that gives me N equals 150. Where are we now here? Oh, there we are, right there. Okay. Now, these mixture problems are going to be one that some students have challenge with, but again, a chart is good, and let's see how it's used here. How much pure acid should be mixed with 4 gallons of 30% acid solution in order to get an 80% acid solution? Okay, let's start filling in. So, how many gallons of pure acid? Well, we don't know. So that's going to be our N right there. Let me get red here. I'm going to use N. Now you could use X also. That's how much pure acid. You don't know how much that is. Now, what's the strength of pure acid? Well, it's 100%, isn't it? I'm going to convert that to a decimal. That's 100%. So, in a sense, the amount of pure acid, it's 1 times this is just going to be N. This represents pure acid. Now, you're going to mix it with 4 gallons of 30%. So how many gallons of 30%? 4. What is the strength of 30%? Well, 0.30. And what will that be? Well, that's going to be 4 times that is going to be 1.2. I just multiplied that. I know there was going to be a 12. I had to check where the decimal was going to go. Okay, now, we want to get 80%. Now, how many gallons will we need to get that 80%? Well, we're going to need our pure acid, which is N, plus 4. So it's going to be n plus 4. This will be the amount. This is the beauty of algebra. And what will be this percent here? Well, it's going to be 80%. So this will be 0.80 times, let's put the n first. So there's basically our equation. We're going to say n, which is our pure acid, 100%. Now we could put that out here too, because if we want to get rid of decimals, we're going to need that. Plus this, no, let's put that correctly too here. Now I could put that there too, but since we already worked it out, that's good right there. And that will equal this. Now, notice if we add a 0 here, we can multiply each of these by 100 and get rid of all our decimals. So this is going to be 100n plus 120 equals 80n plus 3200. Transpose our 80n and get 20n. Transpose this and get 200. Going to subtract this, subtract it from there, get this, just transposing. Going to divide both sides by 20. I get 2 goes into 20 10 times. We need 10 gallons. Okay, you'll have examples. If you can develop a strategy without using the chart, that's fine. But boy, these charts are handy. And basically, you just need to do something like that and organize your data. And then usually it's this line plus this line equals this. That's your basic equation. Your pure acid added to your 30% acid to give you 80%. The beauty of algebra. And we'll go on to 2.7 here shortly.